Sometimes we have this idea that God is so aloof from our world, so distant, so beyond everything that we experience in our world. He's so separate in that sense. He's so transcendental, if you will, that he never comes to become part of our history. That he remains somewhere far away, untouched by our struggles, unaffected by our emotions, and unconcerned with the details of our measly little lives. But the astonishing truth of our tradition is exactly the opposite. Not only does God enter history, he enters it personally. Not only does he walk among us, he allows himself to be seen, known, and even misunderstood. And not only that, he allows himself to feel. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhagwan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is perhaps the most radical expression of this truth about God. Because he doesn't come merely to establish religion. He doesn't come simply to teach philosophy. He comes to experience love. And not just any love, but the deepest, most intense love that exists. The love of Srimati Radharani for Krishna. Just pause and consider that. The Supreme Being, the source of everything, the cause of all causes, comes into this world, not as the object of love, but as the seeker of love. Srila Prabhupada writes, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, but he has come to learn how to love Krishna. This is from the introduction to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's a pretty powerful book. So in this final section of his life, we're not just studying events. We're entering something deeply personal. If his earlier pastimes were like public teaching, these final years, these final days, are like entering his inner chamber. And what we will see challenges our entire idea of spirituality. See, because most of us approach spiritual life like a self-improvement project. We want peace, we want clarity, we want stability in our lives. Mahaprabhu doesn't come for that. He shows something very different, what spiritual life is actually about. Real spirituality is not about becoming peaceful. It's about becoming restless for Krishna. It's not about, it's not detached. It's to be deeply attached to Krishna. It's not about being satisfied. It's about being more and more thirsty and spiritually hungry. In fact, one of the most surprising truths is this. The highest love is not in union with God, it is separation. Even in our own lives, when someone we love is far away, we often feel them more intensely. Their absence paradoxically deepens their presence. Now expand that infinitely. That is what Mahaprabhu came to experience and to teach us. So Srila Prabhupada explains Separation from Krishna makes the devotee more and more attached to him. So tonight we enter his final days. Not an ending, but a culmination. So as we go through this, don't just listen with your mind. Listen with your heart. Because the real question at the end will not be, what did I learn? But why am I not longing for Krishna like this? If we don't get this point, we've missed Chaitanya Charitamrita. So let's briefly reconnect with the last week's session, recap questions. So feel free to answer these. You can unmute yourself and answer. What did Lord Chaitanya appreciate in Rupa Goswami? See, now the question is going to get harder. We have to be specific. What was special about Rupa Goswami that Lord Chaitanya appreciated? Maybe I'll open some of the others so you can think. What did he appreciate in Haridas Thakur? What did he appreciate in Raghunath Das Goswami? And in Govinda Das, his servant. Yes, Trupti Mataji.
Hare Krishna. From Haridas Thakur, he was expecting pure charity of holy name,
Yes.
and in any difficult situation.
That's right, 100%.
Yeah.
From Haridas Thakur, he appreciated his unwavering dedication and absorption in chanting of the holy name. Yes, yes. Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu?
I was thinking Srila Rupa Goswami portrayed the perfect image of humility
Yes.
and servitude,
Yes.
taking into his heart all the instructions of Mahaprabhu.
That's correct. That's correct. 100%. His humility, taking to heart his instructions, the empowerment that he received from the Lord. Those are highlights. Thank you. Anyone remember about Raghunath Das Goswami? What is his specialty?
Renunciation?
Yes, correct. That's correct. Extreme renunciation. Of course, we cannot imitate, but he appreciated that. The Lord appreciated it. And Govinda? Anyone else would like to recall? Govinda was a personal servant of the Lord. So what did the Lord appreciate? Sarah?
His service.
His
Attitude
that he knew the difference between serving the Lord and serving your own personal benefit.
Yes, exactly. Service, that's right. And he knew the difference, 100% right. That, of course, serving the Lord is the highest priority. And to serve the Lord, he would even take on the burden of the reaction of offense. That, okay, fine, I know it's offensive, but for the higher purpose, I'll do it to serve the Lord. But for my own self, I will not take on this offense. Very good, very good. Then, of course, he also had some corrections. What correction was given to Chota Haridas? Why was he corrected?
That you should not view a woman with lusty desires,
That's
because
right.
they're all mothers.
That's right, because Chota Haridas was a sannyasi. And a person who has taken sannyas should be incredibly careful. And if you have a lapse in renunciation, for a sannyasi, it's unforgivable. He held the sannyas standard very, very high. Yes. And he didn't forgive him. I mean, in a sense, like he said, okay, good, Good, he's gone. Ramachandra Puri, what is his big problem? What did the Lord want to correct him about? What is his big bad habit, Ramachandra Puri?
Fault finding.
That's right, 100%. His mentality of finding faults. Yes. And with Vallabhacharya, Vallabha Bhatt, you remember?
Respecting teachers.
Well, what is his correction? He corrected him. Why did he correct him?
He didn't come in the disciplic succession.
Right, but what is the mistake that Vallabha Bhatt made?
he was not accepting the other acharyas' work.
That's right. That's right. I mean, he was saying, yeah, the acharyas are good, but I'm better. I can improve on it. So that was his pride. Not accepting the other acharyas' work. He was prideful. You know? Thank you. Hare Krishna. So, remember this whole map? We've been walking across this whole map. As we look at the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we begin to see this very deliberate progression. His 48 years are not random, they are carefully structured. The first 24 years spent in householder life, immersed in relationships, education, early transformation. Then at 24, he takes sannyas, very young age. And the next 24 years unfold in a completely different mood. But even within those 24 years, there's a shift. From the age of 24 to 30, Mahaprabhu is actively traveling and preaching. He's engaging with the world, transforming hearts, establishing the Sankirtan movement. Then from 30 to 48, when he settles in Jagannath Puri, something changes. The first 6 years in that last set of years, they're still interactive. He's with devotees, instructing, guiding, demonstrating what devotional life looks like in practice. Then from 36 onwards up to 48, he withdraws. Externally, he becomes quieter. But internally, something far more powerful begins. If we were to describe these things, this change in modern terms, it's almost like someone who spends years teaching publicly, then enters a phase of deep internal research where the real discoveries are made. This is where Mahaprabhu moves from teaching love to experiencing love in its most intense form. Yes, Mahaprabhu needed his space and time to experience it as well. It's an interesting meditation in and of itself. So this is how we just talked about his life, the breakdown. Adi Leela is the 0 to 24, of course. Then Sannyas life part is broken into two parts, Madhya Leela, Antya Leela. In Antya Leela, we have the association part, and then after that is this transcendental solitude and intense, you can say, madness. The madness of love. So this is why the Antya Leela flows the way it does. First we see appreciation, where the Lord highlights the qualities of his devotees. Then we see the correction. And then the correction is when he removes our impurities, the subtle impurities. Of course, the intoxication, where now the divine love is overwhelming everything he does. And finally, there's going to be instruction, where he leaves us with a very condensed, or you can say distilled, set of guiding instructions. This is not just a historical sequence. This is our journey. This is the journey of the soul. We begin inspired. We are refined through correction. We become transformed through deeper experience. And then ultimately we are guided toward perfection of our spiritual existence. So, this is one of my favorite verses, and I encourage all of you to learn it. The essential teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whenever I give classes, I like to quote this whenever I can. I'd like to recite it here for you. Hopefully you can all memorize it. Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajesh Tanaya Tadham Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargenaya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Matamidam Tatradarana Para Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajesh Tanayastad Dhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajvatu Vargena Va Kalpita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is to be worshipped. He's the worshipable person, along with his transcendental abode, Vrindavan. So he's not alone. He's specifically that form who is in Vrindavan and is the son of Vrajesh. Vrajesh means the king of Vraja, Nanda Maharaj. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that which was performed by the gopis of Vrindavan. Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu. Vadhu means the ladies of Vrindavan. And to understand the Lord and the philosophical framework, Srimad Bhagavatam, it says right here, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless authority on everything. Prema Pumartho Mahan, and pure love of God is the ultimate goal of life for all men. These statements, for which we have the highest regard, are the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's no other opinion beyond this. So, at the center of all of this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's essential teaching. Everything he taught can be summarized very simply. The goal of life is love. That's the goal. The goal is love. A lot of time we think we know what love is, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to teach us what serious love is, what is real love, what is love in its actual sense. He teaches that with his life, with his various instructions, with what he left behind. He teaches it through his disciples, through his servants, through his descendants, what love is. The goal of life is love. The goal of life is not liberation from the cycle of birth and death. It's not intellectual mastery. It's love. And specifically, love of Krishna. And more specifically, love of Krishna of Vrindavan. More specifically, love of Krishna, who is the son of Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan. And not just any flavor of love. More specifically, the kind of love exhibited by the gopis. It's very specific. Okay, and how do we learn this love of the gopis? How do we learn about it? How do we learn this love? Well, through the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. Srila Prabhupada emphasized this very strongly when he said that the entire Krishna consciousness, this entire process of Krishna consciousness, this entire Krishna consciousness movement is meant to train people to love God. So everything we're doing, chanting, hearing, serving, is meant to bring us to that point of love. That's the whole point of everything that we do. If you're not moving that direction, we're not doing it right. Now when Mahaprabhu enters Jagannath Puri, we can understand that place in a very powerful way. It's like a university of divine love. Now every university has an entrance exam, entrance requirements, or some kind of prerequisites. What are the entrance requirements for this University of Vraja Prem, of divine Krishna conscious love? The requirements are surprising. It's not scholarship. It's not background. It's not even strict practice alone. Okay, what is it then? It is two things. First, no trace of impersonalism. We have to have a clear understanding that Krishna is a person. And second, intense longing, greed, lobha, a deep internal hunger. I want Krishna. I want to attain Krishna. That hunger overrides every other want in our life. First, we have to understand clearly who Krishna is, who we are. And then we want that intense longing. This is what Mahaprabhu did, isn't it? He defeated this Mayavad philosophy where I feel that I'm God and I can become God or something crazy like that. And then he shows his own thirst for God. Even though he himself is God, but he shows us how to be that way. That's what's going to make us happy. That's who we actually are inside, and we're disconnected from that reality. This deep hunger to attain Krishna. Prabhupada makes a striking point when he says that Krishna is not obtained by qualification, but by desire. Our desire. This changes everything. We have to change our desires. Because in most areas of life, we advance based on qualification. It's true. If you're doing a job somewhere, say a corporate job, and then if you get more qualified by going out and doing an MBA, then they give you promotion. Okay, now you can go into management. You get more qualified. You study some more. You demonstrate your abilities in managing people and saving money for the company and earning more money and then hiring the right people, firing the wrong people, and you make advancement. That's our qualification. But in bhakti, we advance based on our intensity of desire. That intensity starts getting stronger. The fire gets hotter. Other things stop mattering so much. That's when we know we're making progress. We're making advancement. Within this university, Mahaprabhu engages in two types of spiritual life. On one side, there is the Jagannath temple. In the temple, what happens? Association. It's public, it's open. People see. It's vibrant, full of festivity and so on. And on the other side, there is a Gambhira. Gambhira. Gambhira means what? Very serious. It's a serious place. Gambhira means very grave. What is the Gambhira? It's a small, secluded space. It's a room where Mahaprabhu enters deep internal absorption. So you have the Jagannath Mandir, you have the Gambhira. What does this teach us? this teaches us something very important and very practical. Spiritual life for us also requires both. We need community, we need temple, we need kirtan, we need shared practice, we need exchanges of love with each other, we need to deepen our relationships with devotees. But we also need internal space, we need some time to ourselves. Because without that internal cultivation, that japa that we do to go really deep in the Lord's consciousness, to be aware of His love for us, to really experience Him one-on-one in our heart. Without that internal cultivation, our external practice can become mechanical, can become merely superficial social life. And then it can devolve into just backbiting and gossiping, and we have completely lost connection with the Lord in the heart. Yes, and we can do that year after year, decade after decade, and wonder why we're not getting anywhere. We need our Jagannath Mandir, but we also need our Gambhir. We need both. We can't just go on without the Gambhir. If you use your phone all day long without ever charging it, eventually it runs out. Similarly, this Gambhir, it represents the inner charging space where this real transformation happens. So that's the classrooms. And who are the tutors and the support staff of this university? There's Swarup Damodar, who is actually Lalita Sakhi in Golok. Ramananda Rai, who is Vishakha Sakhi. Gadadhar Pandit, who is Radharani herself. She's observing Krishna losing his mind as he falls more in love with Krishna. And then how do we graduate, or how do we know that we make progress? We move from being a scholar to being a beggar. Then we know the test is what? Crying for Krishna. If we can cry for Krishna with a pure intent, pure heart, then we know. And now we come to the most profound aspect of Mahaprabhu's final years. His mood. He's not experiencing Krishna's presence. What is he experiencing? He's experiencing Krishna's absence. But this absence is not emptiness. Although he says it feels empty, shunyayatam jagat sarvam. But this absence is not emptiness. The absence itself is the highest intensity of love. Because in divine love, separation deepens connection. Of course, we can relate to this in our lives. If someone we love is away physically, or if they're physically present, we take them for granted, but when they're away, suddenly every memory becomes vivid. Every moment becomes meaningful. We remember deeply the little things that we would have taken for granted when they're with us. In that absence, the person becomes more present in our heart. Imagine what Mahaprabhu is feeling, the infinite version of that. He's entering the mood of Srimati Radharani in separation from Krishna. And not just any separation, but the most intense form when Krishna has left Vrindavan and they get a sense that, he's not coming back. Although he said he's going to come back, but that is incredibly heartbreaking, and yet that separation is the highest form of ecstasy. This is the highest peak of divine love. You can go to the Gambhira and see for yourself. It's there. Those final 12 years in the Gambhir, where he would open up his heart to his closest associates. What is this mood of separation? What is this exactly? Our acharyas explain that there are different types of separation. Is the mood of Srimati Radharani, her mood of separation. There's a separation felt when Krishna left Vrindavan. It was cataclysmic. And then at a specific time when Uddhava delivered the message from Krishna. Can you imagine? Uddhava, who came as a messenger of Krishna, I mean, when they first saw him, like, oh, there's Krishna coming back. No, he looks like Krishna. That's not Krishna. It's quite stunning, that whole exercise, that whole pastime. Even when Krishna is present, she enjoyed his absence. Then her own mood in separation. And then imagine when Krishna left Vrindavan. So there's different types of separation. Purva Raga, Mana, Prema Vaichitya, and Pravas. So what is that? There is the anticipation before meeting. There's separation within loving exchanges. Then there's fear of separation. And then there's physical separation. These are various flavors of it that they actually enjoy in a spiritual world in the pure state. But for us practitioners, the main thing we cultivate is longing. We hear about Krishna. We chant his names. And gradually a sense of anticipation awakens. Whoa, this spiritual life is great. Hey, it makes a lot of sense. I'm excited at the prospect that I will meet the Lord. And we develop a sense of anticipation. We get excited. Oh, this is the path. I want to walk it. What is it going to take? Oh, yeah, I'll do that. And a feeling begins to arise. When will I truly experience Krishna? Now that's our question. That becomes our question. We start feeling it in our heart. When will I experience Krishna? The other things in life, they're okay. I got to do duties and this and that. But now my main thing is how to experience Krishna. When we start feeling that, then we know we have arrived at the path. It's Aradhyo Bhagavan Rajesh Tanaya. That's the path. That Krishna is the worshipable one. That's what we have to be doing. That feeling is the beginning of bhakti. That feeling of really getting excited, awakening to this possibility. And then asking the question, when will I truly experience Krishna? Because we've seen the path. We see it. And those who have seen the path can show us the way. Jnaninas tattva darshina. This is why eagerness becomes so central in Mahaprabhu's teaching. This is lessons in eagerness. We don't just hear the philosophy, okay, the word eagerness. Yeah, we got to know what the word means. No. We see it lived out in very real, very human examples. There's one beautiful pastime of this lady, this woman from Orissa. She's a local lady from that state where Jagannath Puri temple is. And what happens is one day the temple of Lord Jagannath was completely packed. Yeah, it happened back then too. Not just today. Packed temples is a phenomenon from forever. And as was Lord Chaitanya's daily practice, he was standing near this pillar, the Garuda Stambha. Garuda Stambha is where Garuda sits on top, right? You can see that. Taking darshan of Lord Jagannath from a distance, Mahaprabhu would just hold on to the stump so he wouldn't fall and just keep looking with tear-filled eyes, absorbed in devotion. At that moment, this woman entered the temple. She was small in stature. She was surrounded by this crowd that's much taller than her. You can imagine a little old lady. And no matter how much she tried, she just couldn't see the Lord. She was like peeking up, but everybody's so tall. Everybody's jumping, whatever, just so packed. She could not even get a glimpse of this beautiful form of the Lord. Now, for most of us, that would be the end of that. Okay, whatever, We would adjust, we'd wait. I'll come back again, I'll try later. Not her. Her desire to see Lord Jagannath was so intense, so overwhelming. She just lost all awareness of social norms, what's going on around her, lost awareness of etiquette. In that desperation, she did something unthinkable. She climbed onto the shoulders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. I mean, he's the Supreme Lord. He's a sannyasi. You're not supposed to do that sannyasi. You're not supposed to even come that close to a sannyasi if you're a lady. And she was using him as a support to lift herself up and grab the pillar. And she climbed onto the pillar so she could finally get a glimpse of Lord Jagannath. I want to see you, my Lord, and I want you to see me. Now, from an external perspective, this was a serious offense. So Govinda Das, Mahaprabhu's servant, he immediately began to chastise her, became very disturbed, like, what are you doing? But Mahaprabhu stopped him. And instead of criticizing her, Mahaprabhu said something astonishing about the situation. He's saying, hey, don't criticize her. I wish that I had even a fraction of her eagerness to see Lord Jagannath. Amazing. The Lord saw the heart behind this. He saw her absorption. He saw her transcendental desperation, her single-pointed desire for Krishna. And that is what he valued. We see similar intensity in another devotee, Kalidas. Kalidas was not a scholar, not a renunciate. He wasn't famous for anything really. He was not outwardly extraordinary. But he had one deep conviction. He believed that three things carry tremendous spiritual power. One, the dust of a devotee's feet. Two, the water that has washed their feet. And three, the remnants that they have of the food that they've honored, the Mahaprasad. And he was willing to go to any extent to obtain those three things. There is a famous pastime where a great devotee named Jaru Thakur was eating mangoes. And after sucking the juice from the mango, he would discard the seed. As anybody would, nobody eats seeds. Kalidas was watching. Not casually, but with deep attention, watching. And the moment Jaru Thakur left, Kalidas jumped forward, picked up those discarded mango seeds and began relishing them. Why? Because in his heart he understood anything touched by a pure devotee carries spiritual potency. To the external eye, this might seem excessive, even strange, is odd. But internally, it's an expression of faith and eagerness at the highest level. It's a kind of intimacy, you know. Those who love each other, they eat from each other's plate. It's not unusual. This is much deeper. It's an expression of faith. Now, these examples, this woman from Orissa and Kalidas, they're not meant for imitation. They're meant to reveal something to us, something deeper. They're about the absorption of the mind and the absorption of the heart. Because when someone truly wants something, their behavior changes. You see this in modern life, you know, if there's a sold out concert, for example, right? People don't just say, oh, well, no, they're on the site refreshing the ticket pages again. They call contacts, they stay up late. They're like, any scalpers, I'll pay 10 times the price. I don't care. They search every possible avenue. Why? Because they want it. Their desire drives their behavior. So bhakti, our bhakti practice, what is it? This bhakti asks us a very simple, but sometimes uncomfortable question. Actually, it's always an uncomfortable question. Do we want Krishna like that? Like this? Now, theoretically, not even respectfully, but intensely. Tivrena bhakti yogena. Because what Mahaprabhu is showing us through these examples is that it is not external perfection that attracts Krishna. It's the intensity of desire. And when that desire becomes deep enough, then everything else in our spiritual life begins to transform. So these are the lessons in eagerness. Now, as Mahaprabhu goes deeper into this internal state, so you see he's standing by the same pillar here again. And Jagannath is so far away. When Mahaprabhu enters into this state, something remarkable begins to happen. His entire perception of reality changes. He is no longer simply seeing the world as it is externally. He's seeing everything in relationship to Krishna. And this gives rise to this instances of ecstasy. These are not random emotional moments. What are these instances of ecstasy? These experiences. See, these are windows into a transformed consciousness. What does the transformed consciousness look like? Oh, we get a glimpse of it. What is that? Every sight, every sound, every smell, every experience becomes a gateway to Krishna. That's what Krishna wants us to do also. Everything we see should trigger a thought of Krishna. Why do you think in the Bhagavad Gita Krishna spends so much time telling, okay, of fishes I'm the shark, of mountains I'm the Himalayas, and things like that. Everything you see, I'm the pure taste of water. He's teaching us how to gradually, be so much in love that everything triggers appreciation and deep memories of Krishna. Because everything is Krishna in one sense. It's his energy, and it should remind us of him. This is called transformed consciousness. Everything is a gateway to Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. This is what it means to see Krishna everywhere. So one day Mahaprabhu is standing here in the Jagannath temple taking darshan. Externally, Jagannath is Krishna in Dwarka, in the mood of royal opulence and pomp and so on. But suddenly Mahaprabhu does not see Jagannath in that way. Suddenly he sees him. You see in this picture, right? He sees him. He sees that Vrindavan Krishna again, and standing with a flute, that threefold bending form, that cowherd boy of Raja. And then he becomes absorbed completely in that vision. When that vision breaks, he returns to the external consciousness, external awareness, and then he sees Jagannath again in this temple form. He begins to lament because he lost that Vrindavan vision. This shows us something profound. Spiritual advancement is not just about seeing more, it's about seeing more deeply. Of course, Jagannath is Krishna, Krishna is Jagannath, but the moods are different. And of course, when Mahaprabhu sees Jagannath form, he gets so deeply absorbed. Now, on another occasion, Mahaprabhu is walking near a sand dune known as Chataka Parvat. To anyone else, it's just a mound of sand. But to Mahaprabhu, it's what? Govardhan Hill. Immediately he runs toward it in ecstasy and embracing this sand dune as though he has reached Govardhan itself. Govardhan is the most dear, the most priya of this Krishna's pastimes. What we see here is not imagination. He's not imagining, okay, let me sit and imagine, okay, this must be Govardhan, okay, let me run. No. It's not imagination. It is an absorption that is so deep that the external world becomes transparent and the spiritual reality shines forth through that. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada exhibited this sort of thing. Like one time he was going for a walk and he saw a big sign. He said, "Oh, Chintamani, what is this Chintamani?" He just kind of glanced at it. And then he looked again. No, it's Continental. It's like Continental Tires or something. But you see, anything he saw, it triggered him in Vrindavan consciousness. Chintamani, oh, where is it? You see. Another time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he passes through a flower garden. And instantly his mind, there he is. You can see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu back there. Instantly his mind is transported to Vrindavan Dham. Vrindavan is full of flowers and forest flowers and incredibly fragrant. He remembers the gopis selflessly loving Krishna, wandering through the forest, madly searching for Krishna, asking the trees, asking the flowers, asking the creepers, hey, have you seen Krishna? Have you seen Krishna? Where is he? That's madness. And Mahaprabhu enters the same mood. He's no longer in just a garden now. He's in the emotional landscape of Vrindavan. On another occasion, he honors the prasadam of Lord Jagannath. Now, we all take prasadam. But what happens in his consciousness when he takes prasadam? He begins to reflect, oh, this food has touched the lips of Krishna, Krishna's lips. And then from there his mind moves even deeper to the beauty of Krishna's lips and to Krishna's flute, which is always touching those lips. And this leads him into remembrance of the Venu Gita. The Venu is the flute, and the Gita is the song of the flute. Who sings this song of the flute? The gopis. The gopis sing this Venu Gita. where the gopis are glorifying the Venu. Because the sweetness of the Venu is unparalleled in all of existence. The Madhurya. He says 4 kinds of Madhurya that only Krishna has. So Venu Madhurya is one of them. So where the gopis, they glorify the flute. And all this comes from just honoring prasadam. He enters into the ocean of divine remembrance. What do we think when we honor prasadam? And then there's the sound of the flute. Is Mahaprabhu. So one night while in the Gambhira, all the doors are locked. Govinda Das is guarding outside. But somehow Krishna's flute, he can hear it. He hears the sound of Krishna's flute. Mahaprabhu hears it. And that sound is irresistible. It pulls him. It draws him out. Mysteriously, he leaves the locked room and runs into the night, searching for Krishna. Where's that sound coming from? Krishna's flute is so sweet. And then devotees start looking for him because he's a missing person now. And they look and later they find him in a cowshed. His body is contorted in ecstatic transformation. When attraction to Krishna becomes complete, this is what we learn. When the attraction is fully complete, nothing can restrain it. On another occasion, Mahaprabhu is walking alone by the beach, by the ocean in Jagannath Puri. Of course, the ocean is vast. He doesn't see the ocean. What does he see? He sees the Yamuna river. In that moment of overwhelming remembrance, he jumps into the water. And then a fisherman later finds him unconscious, catches him in his net. He thinks he's caught a dead body. When he touches Mahaprabhu's body, the fisherman himself, just by that touch, is overwhelmed with ecstasy. He's unable to understand what is happening to him. He cannot stop chanting the name, Hari, Hari, Hari. Then later on, of course, the devotees explain to him, you're so fortunate. You've not touched a corpse, you've touched the body of the Lord. And then there are moments connected to something as simple as an Ashoka tree. It's an Ashoka tree. Even seeing a tree, a fragrance, a color, it would trigger deep remembrance of Krishna's pastimes in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart. See, because his consciousness is no longer divided. It is fully unified in Krishna. For those of us who are conditioned souls in the material world, that's pretty much almost all of us here. Certainly myself. We are divided souls. We want Krishna, but we don't want only Krishna. We want a little bit of some selfish stuff here too as well, in the material world, in matter, in this dead lumps of stuff. We think we can squeeze out some juice from this rock. So we're divided. Somehow we're still convinced, I'll enjoy here also. So we're divided. But Mahaprabhu is showing what happens when we are undivided. We no longer are attracted by the world. What does it feel like? What does it look like when we are fully unified with Krishna? So what is the larger point behind all of these instances? It's not just that Mahaprabhu was experiencing intense emotions. It's that his entire way of seeing the world had transformed. He's teaching us how to do that. This is where we can begin to bring this in our lives. Think about someone who's deeply in love, right? Everything reminds them of that person they love. A song, a place, a memory, even something small and ordinary like a shoe lying around. If you remember, if a child and it's your own child, and then you remember, okay, these are little booties that you wore when you were just born. They're so cute, I'll never throw them away. Everything becomes meaningful, even ordinary things. You look in the corner, and when the kid was 3 years old, he got some crayons and started writing all over the wall. Now the kid is 20 years old, and we look at that corner and we remember that little scribbling becomes so dear to us. Now imagine that, but infinitely deep, infinitely pure, and completely spiritual. That is Mahaprabhu's consciousness. Everything becomes a trigger to remember Krishna. Everything becomes Krishna. And this is where we begin to understand the goal of bhakti more clearly. It's not just about practicing at certain times. It's not just about rituals or discipline. All those are needed, of course. But ultimately, it's about transforming our perception so that eventually we no longer live in a world separate from Krishna. Vishvam Purna Sukhayate. This world becomes a place of joy. It's in the world where everything reminds us of Krishna. And that is the beginning of real ecstasy. And now we come to a very tender moment in Mahaprabhu's pastimes. After all the teaching, after all the transformation, after all the deep internal experience of divine love, the time comes for him to conclude his earthly pastimes. But even this does not happen abruptly. It happens through a very subtle, almost poetic exchange. At one point, Advaita Acharya, who had originally is the one who called the Lord, he said, please come, and the Lord descended on his invitation. Advaita Acharya sends this cryptic message like a poetic sonnet, Advaita Acharya's sonnet. The Lord came on Advaita Acharya's prayer. Now this sonnet is going to wind down his pastimes. The message is not direct. It's a layered symbolic message. But there's one line in that message stand out. It says, there is no more demand for rice in the marketplace. Now on the surface it sounds ordinary. But Mahaprabhu immediately understand the meaning. Advaita Acharya is saying, my Lord, you came to distribute divine love. And now that the love has been distributed so widely, everyone has received it. In other words, your work here is complete. In that moment, Mahaprabhu recognizes that both his divine purposes have been fulfilled. Externally, he spread the Sankirtan movement, established that as the Dharma, distributed the holy name everywhere. And internally, he has experienced the deepest love of Srimati Radharani for Krishna. And so he begins to withdraw. Not out of exhaustion, the Lord never gets exhausted, but out of completion. Purnamada, it's complete. Just as the teacher leaves the classroom when the lesson has been fully delivered, Mahaprabhu prepares to conclude his visible presence in the world. Now the way in which he departs is described in different ways by our acharyas. Different ways. Now, rather than seeing these as contradictions, we understand them as multiple windows into a transcendental reality, different dimensions. So one very prominent account centers around this deity of Tota Gopinath. Tota Gopinath, this deity was worshipped by Gadadhar Pandit, one of Mahaprabhu's closest associates. And as Gadadhar Pandit grew older, it became physically difficult for him to stand and perform worship. In response to his devotion, the deity of Tota Gopinath was standing before did something extraordinary. He sat down. You can see he's sitting cross-legged. The Lord himself adjusted his deity form to make it easier for his devotee to serve him. It is said that at the time of his Mahaprabhu's disappearance, Lord Chaitanya entered into this very deity of Tota Gopinath. Today you can go there, you can see this deity, and there's a mark, the devotee will show you, there's a mark on the side of the deity. It's said to be the place where Mahaprabhu entered. This is not just a story, it's a statement. What's the statement? The Lord never leaves. He never leaves. He becomes accessible in another form. He's always accessible. That's the message to take here, not that he's gone. Another account describes Mahaprabhu entering into the Jagannath deity, that very same Jagannath deity whom he worshipped every day. That same giant Jagannath before whom he had danced and cried and entered ecstasy. He merges into that form. The Lord appeared as a devotee, returns into the form of the Lord. That seeker of love returns to the source of love. So, how do we understand these different accounts? Our acharyas explain that for the Supreme Lord, such things are not mutually exclusive. Just as during his Sankirtan pastimes, Mahaprabhu would appear simultaneously in multiple groups. So similarly, he can also conclude his pastimes in multiple ways. He's not limited by the constraints of materiality, that if he did this, he couldn't have done that. But beyond the details of how he left, the deeper question is, what does it mean that he left? Did he actually go away? Or did he simply change the way he's present? Because if you reflect carefully, Mahaprabhu is still here. He is present in his holy name, in his teachings, in his devotees, in these very pastimes we are hearing. So his quote-unquote departure is not a disappearance as such. I notice we don't celebrate the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Like we don't observe it like we observe Different Acharya's disappearance. Because he doesn't disappear as such. It's a transition from his visible presence to accessible presence. He's there, right here. And this brings us to the deeper emotional conclusion of this section. The flow of nectar, appreciation, correction, we covered last time, intoxication, and now. Yeah. See, Mahaprabhu did not just come to perform pastimes. He came to give us something, a lasting gift. And once that gift was fully given, he stepped back. Not to abandon us, but to invite us. To invite us now to take responsibility for what he has given us. What is that responsibility? To carry forward the Sankirtan movement. To deepen our own longing. To transform our own hearts. Because in the end, the true continuation of Mahaprabhu's pastimes is not found in history books. It is found in the hearts of those who take his message seriously. And so his final pastimes they leave us not with a sense of loss, but with a sense of responsibility. The Lord has given us everything. Now what will we do with it? See? What will we do with this? So, the last chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita is about instruction, the final instruction, Shiksha-ashtakam. This is one of the most precious gifts that Mahaprabhu has left for us. 8 simple verses, but containing the essence of bhakti. Now, before we even look at the content of these verses, it's important to understand something very powerful. Where did they come from? Because their origin tells us everything about their importance. First, these verses were not composed like an ordinary philosophical work. They were utterances of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. They emerged spontaneously from his own realization, from his own experience of divine love. And they were carefully recorded by his intimate associate Swarup Damodar. So what we have here is not a theory, it's realized truth. It's truth spoken directly by the Lord, but in the mood of a devotee. Then later on we see these same teachings appearing in another form. In Rupa Goswami's Padyavali. These verses of Shiksha-ashtakam, they're there. They're there in the Padyavali. But not as a structured sequence. They appear scattered, embedded among other devotional verses. This shows us something interesting. These teachings were already circulating within the community of advanced devotees, but they had not been presented as this unified unit of progression. It's only later in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that these verses are brought together in their complete form. There we find all the 8 verses arranged in order, along with their brief explanations. And then when we see them together like this, something becomes very clear. They are not random verses, they're a systematic map of the spiritual journey, from the very beginning of faith all the way to the highest stage of divine love. And then the tradition continues. The great acharyas, they give commentaries, recognizing the depth of these verses. They write these purports and commentaries on these verses. They unpack each word, each phrase, each layer of meaning, the progression itself. Because what appears simple on the surface is actually unlimited in depth. So when we look at the Shiksha-ashtakam, we should not think these are just 8 verses. Okay, just another song. No, this is the distilled essence of everything Mahaprabhu came to give. Not just philosophy, but actual practice. And not just practice, but realization. And not just realization, but love. Love. And that is why we now move into these verses. We should approach them with a different mindset. Not as something to analyze, really, but something to enter into, the mood, to absorb. They're not just describing the path of bhakti. These verses invite us. They're inviting us to walk the path of bhakti. So today we come to the conclusion of our journey through Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami leaves us with something deeply moving. Of course, he doesn't end with pride. He doesn't end by glorifying his own scholarship. He ends with what? With gratitude and humility. He says, Chaitanya Charitamrita Ye jana shune Tara charana dua karon mui pane. To anyone who hears Chaitanya Charitamrit, I wash their feet and I drink that water. Just think about that. He's the author of one of the greatest spiritual literatures in history, is bowing to the listeners, the readers. Why? Because in Vaishnava culture, hearing is not passive. To hear sincerely is itself devotion. To sit, to listen, to carefully listen with rapt attention, to receive with faith, that is spiritual service. Then he says, Shotara padarenu karo mastaka bhushan tomara e amrita pile safala hoile shrama. Shotara padarenu karon mastaka bhushan. The dust of the feet of such hearers I place upon my head as my ornament. Just look at his humility. He's saying his spiritual advancement is not based on superiority. It's based on gratitude. It's based on humility. It's based on recognizing the mercy of the Lord coming these channels. Prabhupada writes again and again, humility is not weakness. It is the natural symptom of real realization. The more one knows Krishna, the less one feels proud. And then Kaviraj Goswami says, what? Tumara e amrita pile safala hoile shrama. If you have drunk this nectar of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, then my labor, my effort is successful. That's the heart of a real teacher. Success is not the applause at the end. Success is the transformation of the hearts of the listeners. That should be a reflection today. We've not come simply together to complete a course. We've come to ask, has my heart changed? Has my longing for Krishna increased? Or at least, am I now more interested in longing for Krishna? Because if even a little genuine attraction is awakened, then the journey is complete. And actually, that's the journey starting for us now. If we awaken a little bit, our journey is successful, but it starts. This slide here reminds us of something extraordinary. Chaitanya Charitamrita was completed by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami when he was about 95 years old. 95! Most people at the age are withdrawing from responsibility. First of all, we were lucky to even cross 90, okay? He was giving the world immortality. According to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Krishnadas Kaviraj appeared in 1520 and he left the world in 1616. Chaitanya Charitamrita was completed in 1615. This means that this work, this monumental treatise, is written in the final stage of his life. Physically weak, personally humble, but spiritually blazing. We have the date, Sunday. It was a Sunday, 14th of June, 1615. What does this teach us? Just this. Service is not dependent on age. Bhakti does not retire. There's no retirement age for bhakti. Okay, now I'm done with bhakti. Devotion deepens. And also this reminds us that Chaitanya Charitamrita is not ordinary literature. It's not academic writing that you submit for a thesis and get your PhD. It's not a dissertation. This is realized truth. Every verse carries tears. Every chapter carries realization. Every page carries surrender. This is why Prabhupada placed so much emphasis on studying this book very carefully. Because this is not information, it is revelation. And today, hundreds of years later, we are still sitting here together, being transformed by those same words. That is the power of parampara. Step back, look at the full picture. From Adi Lila, Madhya Lila, Antya Lila. What we see is not just a biography. We see a map of spiritual life. It begins with invocation, incarnation. The Lord appears. Then education, transformation, renunciation, propagation, aspiration, organization, appreciation, correction, intoxication, and finally instruction. This is not only Mahaprabhu's journey, it is our journey. At first, spiritual life begins with inspiration. Something touches us. Then comes education. Okay, we learned the framework. Then comes transformation. We start becoming a different person. And then the deeper work begins. What is that? Renunciation, correction, removal of the impurities. That's the purification. And finally, if we stay sincere, if we stick to the path, love begins. This is why Chaitanya Charitamrita is so powerful. Because it's not just telling us about Mahaprabhu, it's showing us ourselves. It's asking, where are you on this journey, my dear soul? Are we still inspired but uncommitted? Are we being corrected but resisting to the corrections? Are we ready for deeper absorption? Because the path is not theoretical, it is personal. And Mahaprabhu has shown us every step of the way. So once again, like I do every week, I want to thank School of Bhakti for this opportunity. There's still 2 more sessions. So, although now we're concluding this pastimes portion, the Chaitanya Charitamrita portion of the series, we're not actually finished. There's 2 more sessions still left. In many ways, we are just arriving at the most practical and important part. This final gift is Shikshashtakam. So next 2 sessions, the final ones of this series, will be dedicated entirely to those 8 verses. We'll go deeply into them. Not just philosophically, but we'll try to be practical. How do these verses apply to our modern lives? How do they guide us in relationships? Please read them. If you haven't memorized them already, try to memorize them by next week. Very powerful. How are they going to guide us in our relationships, in our work, in our pressure, in our distractions, our daily struggle? How do they teach us to approach the chanting of the holy name properly? Because ultimately Shikshashtakam is all about this, how to chant in the right mood. It's all about, every verse is actually points to chanting, believe it or not. How to chant in the right mood, not mechanically, not as a ritual, but as a living, vibrant relationship of love with Krishna. These 8 verses, they're a roadmap of our spiritual progress. They show the full journey from faith to purification, humility, surrender, longing, and ultimately to divine love. In other words, Shikshashtakam verses, they will show us how to move from where we are right now to where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants us to be. These final 2 sessions coming up are perhaps the most important of all. Because now the question becomes, Mahaprabhu has shown us the goal. How do we actually walk there? That's where we go next. So thank you very much for your kind attention and your valuable time. And I've used up a lot of the time today. Was a lot of material. So kindly forgive me for that. But think if you have any comments or questions at this time,
Hare Krishna
you
Prabhu.
can address them.
Thank you
Hare
so
Krishna.
much.
Hare Krishna.
It's
Chaitanya
been
Prabhu.
a wonderful journey, and you have given us the vital injection of enthusiasm in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, our gratitude to you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. I see in the chat I have a couple of questions. Maybe I can take a look at those and then I can come back to anybody else who wants. Is that okay? Yeah. Let's see. Needy asks, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. Okay. When we start to experience these aspects of bhakti, like seeing and hearing Krishna, how do we distinguish between what we're experiencing as actual advancement in bhakti or a mental illness, as the experience is similar to dementia? This is actually a thoughtful question. It's an important question. Because spiritual life should make us more sober, not more sentimental or disconnected from reality. In genuine bhakti, let's see, there we are. Okay. Seeing Krishna, hearing Krishna, doesn't begin with some dramatic mystical hallucination. It begins as our perception being purified. Now, Prabhupada would often explain that advanced devotees see Krishna everywhere because they see everything in relationship to Krishna. They hear Krishna because every sound reminds them of his instructions, his holy name. This is not a loss of reality, but a deeper reality. A person in mental illness, like, it's mentioned dementia, certain forms of dementia, there's psychosis. A person like that often loses the grounding, gets detached from reality. Confusion increases, judgment weakens, relationships suffer, behavior becomes erratic. There's agitation, fear, instability. A lot of times, it's egocentric, like I am special, I alone have secret powers, everyone must follow my revelation. This is psychosis, hallucination. In genuine bhakti, the opposite happens. It's more humility, it's more steadiness, it's more compassion, it's more service attitude, there's more obedience to Guru. There's clarity. There's clarity with how they function in the world. There's less ego, there's less demand for recognition. They have a clear understanding of Shastra. This is not the symptom of someone who is in dementia or who is suffering psychosis. The clarity doesn't come like that. Some aspects may seem similar, but they're actual polar opposites. A real spiritual life makes one simpler, more surrendered, not more grandiose. So like coming back to that humility. The symptom of advancement is not spectacles, not making a scene, but deep humility. The test is not what did I see. The test is what am I becoming? Am I becoming more truthful, more peaceful, more detached from selfishness. So if that's happening, that's healthy spiritual progress. And of course, bhakti is not meant to be practiced alone in our private hallucinations. We check ourselves through guru, through sadhu, through shastra, through. See, it's a personal experience. You have to harmonize it with shastra and guidance. Another thing, this is important, and I've seen this happen a lot, and we should be very cautious. We should be cautious of quickly labeling every emotion as divine revelation. Sometimes it is bhakti, and sometimes it is psychology. Sometimes it is exhaustion. Sometimes it is trauma. Not everything is divine revelation, okay? So humility means we don't rush to declare ourselves advanced. Better to think, I'm trying to serve sincerely. If Krishna wishes, he may reveal something. That is safe. And we can always check the revelation with the seniors. Bhakti does not make us less sane. Bhakti makes us finally sane. Prahlad Maharaj, you remember Prahlad Maharaj? He says, madness for Krishna is the highest form of sanity, while madness for this temporary world is a real insanity. Okay, thank you, Neeri, for that question. Let me see if I miss anybody. Hoshil Prabhu asks before that, sorry I missed it. Isn't Ramananda Rai an incarnation of Arjuna? So yes, he is also recognized an incarnation of Arjuna. So both are there. So there are many Gaudiya authorities who explain that he's identified Arjuna. And then he's also explained that he's in the intimate mood of the gopis, the sakhis. That's why this position is very special, of course. Okay. Let me see any other. Okay, Hoshil Prabhu asks, how can we take practical steps in the conditions? Okay, I'm going to go to Jasumati first. Her hand has been up for a while. Then we'll come to Hoshil Prabhu's questions. Yes, Jasumati Mataji, please go ahead and ask your question.
I'm not sure if it's relevant to this class, but I was just thinking that Lord Sri Chaitanya is known to the Vaishnavas, but not very well known in other parts of like the rest of India or something like that. How would you explain to someone about him?
Yes,
because
of course.
I myself didn't know who Lord Chaitanya was until I got into it.
Yes.
And I couldn't kind of believe or grasp how can that be. So yeah.
Of course. Yes. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually known as undercover avatar. He was actually known as undercover, and it's understandable that most people won't know him. He's known as Channa avatar. Channa means secret or covered. It means undercover. Not all avatars are undercover. In fact, very few avatars are undercover. Most avatars come out and really show their Aishwarya completely. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes as a devotee covered. He didn't come to show his Aishwarya. He didn't come to show his Bhagavata, his godness. He came to show his devotiness. That's why. You see. But those who know. And those who really study scripture know. There's at least 25 different scriptures that point to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's avatar, predicted 5,000 years before he came. So if you want to really prove it, there's no shortage of evidence scripturally. And now the whole world knows. You can't say nobody knows. Now actually, compared to even 20 years ago in India, because of ISKCON's explosive growth in India and the rest of the world, now everybody knows actually. You know, very, very few people. I mean, okay, there are still millions who don't know in India, but there are millions more who know now because of Prabhupada. And that is our responsibility to glorify. You see, Lord Chaitanya left the job for us. Bhaktivinoda Thakur left the job for us. And so we should take it that way. Prabhupada said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur left the job for us to distribute this all over the world, so I'm doing it. So that's another way to look at it, that yes, he came as a hidden incarnation, but our job is to make sure he's no longer hidden. Everybody should know about him. See? All right? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Let's see. I'm coming back to Hoshil's question. What does Hoshil say? How can we take practical steps in this conditioned state where we begin to actually surrender to Krishna? Like, it seems easy to do bhakti when one, say, for example, financially secured. How does one actually progress to truly surrender to Krishna? Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's actually easier to speak of surrender when things are very comfortable, isn't it? Yeah, I have plenty of money. I have, 10 Mercedes cars lined up anytime I want, and I have servants, and I have a trust fund account. I'm going to inherit millions of dollars, and everything's nice. Now I can surrender nicely. Actually, real Sharanagati begins when the mind says, I must, the mind just starts out like this, I must control everything or I will collapse. And then, instead of that, we learned that no, I must do my duty sincerely and trust Krishna with the result. That sense of dependence on Krishna is what Sharanagati is about. You see? And Sharanagati, this feeling of collapse can happen to people of any level, even those who are rich. Rich people are very stressed out. You think rich people are not stressed out? You think they don't have high cortisol in their systems? They're sometimes more stressed out than regular folks. Because now, when you have more to lose. It's very stressful. Arjuna didn't surrender in the middle of a peaceful beach vacation, okay? He surrendered in the middle of a battlefield with fear, with confusion, with loss, impossible decisions. That's why Bhagavad Gita is so practical. Surrender does not mean passivity. It doesn't mean that there's no other, stresses around you. It doesn't mean there's no challenges. It doesn't mean that you're not fighting with your cousins. Arjuna was literally going to kill his cousins. I'm not saying you go start killing your cousins. That's not my point here. My point is, he was in very difficult circumstances, on the family side and all that. Yes, he was wealthy, but that wealth didn't help him right now. It made it more complicated. So surrender does not mean passivity. Surrender means responsibility without the sense of false proprietorship. I'm responsible, but I don't own these things. But I'm still responsible. The sense of stewardship. You see? So you ask, what are some practical steps? Separate your duty from control. See, control is mine. Duty is I have to do it for the higher purpose. It looks similar, but it's not the same thing. We hide behind a label of duty to keep control and enjoy that sense of control. We don't want that. You see, we control our efforts, but we cannot control the outcomes. I can work honestly, and I should. I can care for my family, and I should. I should manage my finances. I should. I can protect my health. I should. But I cannot guarantee the results in any of these. I cannot. I'm working out, I'm working really hard, I eat very healthy, and still it turns out I have something really nasty in my body. I can't control the results. I can't guarantee it. Our anxiety often comes from trying to possess that was never ours. And we're still clinging on to it. Even no matter how hard we try to cling on to our hairs, the hairs are going to fall out, okay? And the more we cling on to what is not ours, the more we have anxiety. So, okay, what do? Do your best. Release the result and sense of control. It's an internal thing, okay? It's not an external thing. Externally, you look the same last week and this week. Last week you were not surrendered. This week you're surrendered. Last week you're doing the same hard work, okay? Investing, whatever you do. This week you're still doing the same thing. But now you become surrendered. You're releasing the results. You're spending it in Krishna's service. You know the results belong to Krishna. This is when karma yoga turns into bhakti yoga. See? Gradually. It's a gradual thing. It's a gradual shift. Practically, yes. Okay, what are practical things? Other things you could do. Small daily ways of turning to Krishna. Look for that. Practice dependence. I'm dependent on you, Krishna. Don't wait for a life crisis to prove that you depend on Krishna. Recognize you depend on Krishna today. Recognize that I'm eating not because of my hard work, but because Krishna made sure I got food today. Not that I worked so hard. No. Don't wait for crisis before any difficulty. Pray to Krishna, please help me respond properly to this difficulty. Before going to work, before starting work, pray, Krishna, please guide my intelligence so I don't think this is me who's doing everything. And before we reach some precipice of success, thank the Lord. My Lord, this is your mercy. It's not my greatness. These are small ways to increase our dependence on the Lord. Every opportunity that we see in front of us is a golden opportunity to serve the Lord in the form of dependence. Our surrender is going to build, not in one dramatic moment. It's going to build through repeated small acts of dependence. Don't wait for big drama. Start doing small things today. That's practical. Read Gita and see how can I apply it today. Also, we have a sense of stress, anxiety, worry, insecurity. All of us do. If anybody here says they don't have any insecurities or worries, even a trace bit, most likely they're not telling the truth. What do? Accept that insecurity is a part of material life. You cannot be in the material world and be fully secure, unless we are the most advanced devotees. Even the wealthy are not secure. Our health changes. Our health is not secure. Relationships are not secure. Yes. Our markets change. Right now the market is roaring. When there's a correction, we feel, oh, I lost so much. Our bodies change. This pant used to fit me, now it doesn't fit me anymore. My shirt, I can't even put it on anymore. I have to buy a whole new shirt. This pants, oh gosh. That's why I wear dhotis. Dhotis you can just, doesn't matter, just keep adjusting. Our bodies change. Material security, or sense of security that we feel, is often actually a negotiated uncertainty. We've negotiated with it. What is real security? Real security is knowing our relationship with Krishna. It's not an arrangement of external configurations. All of that is going to go away. Today or tomorrow, the day after. We don't even know how long we're going to live, okay? There's no security in this world. Padam padam yat vipadam. Every step is a danger. What is the real security? That every step we took toward Krishna, that's permanent asset. We know all these things. There's nothing new for us. It's just we have to keep rephrasing it to remind ourselves, Stay close to your sadhana. The mind might say, I'm too stressed to chant. No, that's when you need to chant more. Not for escaping, but for aligning. When the phone is dying, the battery is dying, you don't say, oh, let it die. No, that's when you need to charge it more. That's when you need to put in the charger. Okay, and of course, the classic practical solution for everything, associate with those who are progressive devotees. The key is progressive devotees, okay? All right. We've gone quite over the time. I'm sure a lot more questions are there. But if you can hold on to your questions for next time, that'll be great. I want to thank you all for staying. I know there was a lot more when we started. Some of you had to leave. I completely understand. But thank you, those who stayed. I do mean it when I say thank you. It really gives my life a sense of purpose to come and serve you in different ways, whatever way I can to serve all of you. All of you are very progressive devotees. I can tell by your questions. I can tell by your sincerity. And it gives me inspiration that I should also become somewhat progressive as well, maybe someday. But please do plan on coming to the next 2 sessions of the last ones, session 9 and session 10, where it's going to be slightly different. It's going to go much deeper now into these final messages, the Shikshashtakam. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.